you ready? Mike.
Yeah. Good to go.
Action.
Go for it.
Good afternoon. Welcome to our little show. Today what we want to talk about is a K2 roundup that we had after at least a 3-month investigation. As we all know, over the last 3 years, we have had to deal with a continuous spate of K2 overdoses. Most of them have been centered around the Arch in the downtown area. By no means is this just a homeless problem, but with the concentrated homeless population, it has been most evident in our downtown area. Beginning in about 2014, April, May of 2014, we began to see huge amounts of overdoses, which turned out to be K2. They have been a total drain on our downtown police resources, as well as our EMS and fire department resources, and we have tried continuously to respond and get a handle on that. We had our most recent roundup. We began working a case in December of 2016 after another Thanksgiving outbreak of overdoses, excuse me. And our officers in the Organized Crime Division began to do undercover buys where we did video recordings, we did hand-to-hands, and began a process of obtaining some sealed indictments to attack our predator dealers who come downtown and supply our homeless folks with the drugs. This is a several-pronged investigation. We've not only been following our suppliers upstream to other parts of the state and the country, but we're currently working cases with some international partners to try to get to the source country of some of these drugs. I think we've done our community a disservice by calling this drug a synthetic marijuana. This is no more a marijuana than if I put bleach in a martini glass and called it a cocktail. This does not have the effects of marijuana. This is a public safety and public health issue, and unless we attack it as such, we are doing our citizens, our kids, and our homeless residents a complete disservice. EMS will talk to some of the more specific medical aspects of this issue, but from the police standpoint, we were bound to attack this problem because it's a serious life or death issue, and we have at least one documented death directly related to K2, probably many more, and there will be more unless we continue to keep a handle on this problem. Commander Justin Newsom, who is our commander over DTAC, is going to talk to you about the effect that this issue has had on the downtown area and the downtown resources. Commander Newsom.
Thank you. Commander Justin Newsom, Downtown Area Command. As Commander Officer said, the K2 epidemic's a huge strain on the resources of the Downtown Area Command. Each day we respond to several cases of K2 reactions and K2 overdoses over near the Arch, but it's not always just at the Arch. Probably around 7 to 10 a day, every single day throughout a 24-hour period. Officers are responding to that, and but for the rapid response and the good work of EMS, I think we would have more deaths related to K2. In addition to the public health risk to the people who are using it, as Commander Officer says, you never know what a person on that's going to do, and sometimes they fight, sometimes they attack citizens, sometimes they stumble into the street where they're almost hit by cars. And so the effects of this, go beyond just the physical effects, but the things that can happen to somebody because they're on this, could be severe. You look around the nation at anywhere there's a high homeless population, and you'll see that K2 is the scourge of that population. It's no secret that a large majority of homeless people have mental illness. It's no secret that a large majority of them have substance abuse problems. And the predators that these guys arrested today, and my guys downtown arrested today, are just that. They prey on easy targets who are looking for an escape from their current situation, and K2 provides a low-cost, easy escape from that. And it's dangerous not only to the homeless, but to everyone who's around whenever they're using this substance. So in addition to what the organized crime unit's been doing, and we greatly appreciate it downtown, what these guys have done to make these cases on these guys. In addition to that, my officers daily, utilizing camera systems that we have access to, observe what appear to be drug transactions in and around the arch. Officers will go in, detain those people, identify them, and there's a lot of work being done every single day to try to protect the homeless population and try to rid our city of this scourge. And so we appreciate everything that organized crime has done, and everyone else should be thankful that a lot of work's being done by the Austin Police Department to rid our streets of this substance. So now turn it over to Commander Benavides with EMS.
Thank you, Commander Mike Benavides, Austin Travis County EMS. I'm just going to echo what our counterparts here with police department have said. These things are not drugs. We even are reluctant to call them overdoses because that would lead somebody to believe that there is a proper dose, and there is no proper dose. We like to say that one hit, it's like playing Russian roulette. You know, you could die from one hit. You know, we're seeing not only the effects from the patients, but as the commanders have stated, you know, to the community, what kind of effects it can have on them. You know, other than the patients, you know, these people can act combative, and so you're putting public safety lives at stake. You're putting the community members' lives at stake, and you're also putting the patients' lives at stake. You know, we see these patients in a multitude of different signs and symptoms, from combative behavior to catatonic to seizures. It's very difficult for us to really track this with a fair amount of certainty. We are very conservative in our numbers, but this operation that Austin Police, that our Austin Police Department colleagues have conducted today, hopefully it came at a very good time, as our numbers, our K2 numbers that we responded to in the month of January were the 4th highest in the last 5 years. In December, they were actually the 2nd highest in the last 5 years. So we're in the year of 2016, we're actually averaging about 145, a little over 145 calls a day that Austin Travis County EMS is responding to. Or correction, a month, not a day. That's 145 a month. So, you know, again, we would like to thank you all for all the hard work that you all are conducting, and you know, I'll turn it back over to the commander for questions.
Commander Officer.
Well, before we get to questions, I'm going to have Lieutenant Tate, who was in charge of today's operation, step forward and talk about the specific operation. But before we get into that, one of the things I'd like to say is one of the reasons we have to attack this problem a little bit different. Crack, we can form, for instance, we're going to do a crack reversal. We can do instant test and get a presumptive test on whether it's crack or not. The thing about this poison is that the way they make this, they get their chemicals, and who knows what the chemical of the day is that they spray on this stuff. So we have to rely on our lab, who I have to say has done an absolutely fantastic job with making it a priority to test these drugs so we could get these indictments, because these were a lot of indictments that came down in a short amount of time, and without the lab test it would be impossible to complete these cases and get into the grand jury. But they spray these chemicals on these things, and we have to do an undercover operation and then go back, get them tested, and go back later to pick up the bodies, which makes this a very time-consuming and manpower-intensive process. Lieutenant Tate, whose units we're in charge of the operation today, is going to talk about the specifics, and I'll invite him up now.
Good afternoon. Today's operation.
Identify yourself, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oliver Tate, Lieutenant, Organized Crime Division, Narcotics Unit.
And Oliver is just O-L-I-V-E-R.
Yes, ma'am.
Spelling.
Yes, ma'am. Today's operation was a result of an extensive investigation that started right after we did our last roundup back toward the end of October. We ended up issuing or getting 42 warrants signed, first-degree felonies, for either possession of or delivery of. Ended up with 36 suspects that had outstanding warrants on them. The unit coordinated with the downtown area command officers to go out, and what we were doing was doing spotters, where we just look, as you can see on the board, they look for these people, they see them, they call officers in, they go in, they make their arrest. We had 5 that were already in custody, that their warrants will be served over at the Travis County Jail. The remaining ones, they were out, they were loose. We ended up with the final result total being 10 that were newly arrested, 5 that were already in custody in the Travis County Jail. The remaining 21 outstanding warrants will be forwarded over. They will be entered into NCIC, TCIC. All officers in the department will have the ability to run those people through the system. They come back, they'll know they have a warrant, and they'll arrest them. Does anyone have any questions?
Just for any of you all, I know before, when you guys have had these news conferences, you guys have talked about the difficulty, Commander Officer, you were talking about the difficulty in finding these people. I mean, you know, this drug continues to change over and over again. You've got these warrants on these folks. What does the future look like? Are you still actively searching for people that are involved in this?
Oh, definitely. What happens during a lot of these roundups, the word gets out. People know, hey, don't go in this particular area because cops are over there working, they're arresting a lot of people. So they will migrate out. But the past has shown they always migrate back to where they know they're going to get their customers, and that's the downtown area because it has the flood of the most number of people in a given time frame.
So, well, for Captain Benavides, I mean, what sort of concern do you have, though, that now that this has gone down, that they will change the ingredients to this and we'll see another wave?
That's what we've been dealing with since it was discovered that this is on our street. So that doesn't change the model. I know that it probably changes that model for law enforcement. It may be a little bit more difficult for them, but as far as us, we are just treating patients. They do appear in different signs and symptomology, but we're treating signs and symptoms. It'll be, I think that's probably something more difficult that law enforcement has to deal with, the ever-changing chemical compositions of these things.
Commander, actually, while you're at the podium, I wanted to ask something really quick. I want to get a better sense of how these people are treated because I guess like they're just ingesting poison. So does that mean that you guys are pumping their stomachs? Are you also giving them certain kinds of medication? Are they dealing with more intense symptoms that have to be treated with, I don't know, surgery or something?
There's no standard way that we treat this patient population because if they're presenting as with a seizure, then we're going to treat the seizure. If they're presenting with catatonic conditions, then we're going to try to manage their airway and see how their vital signs are responding. So we're basically just treating signs and symptoms. There is no standard way that you treat the users of these chemicals.
And so it's it was said that there's only one person who has died from K2. Has anyone else like lost brain function or had other, life-altering things happen to them because of K2?
We suspect that there has. However, we can track these patients all the way through the hospital system to discharge. Then that is a challenge for law enforcement. That's a challenge for EMS to even speak to how severe some of these patients. We do know that speaking with one of the hospital administrators or one of the hospital staff that their quickest from discharge to readmission from a patient was 30 seconds. They walked out, took another hit, and then they were right back inside the hospital again. So we do know that, and that is speaking to one of the hospital physicians who conveyed that to us. But again, it's a problem.
You mentioned that. Sorry, go ahead. And sorry, my last question is, how do you know they're not just losing consciousness and they're fine? For this guy, is it kind of a situation where it could be worst case scenario, so you have to treat them, but they may actually be fine in some cases?
They're usually not fine.
And because why?
Because of the way they're behaving, they're presenting, their signs and symptoms. Sometimes they could present with high blood pressure. They could present with low blood pressure. High heart rate, low heart rate. They could be combative. They could be catatonic. So you're looking at both ends of the spectrum for these patients. So it is a wide variety of changes in these patients.
You mentioned it's not just a homeless problem. Can you talk about the other populations you're seeing? I know that's marketed as synthetic marijuana. So is it a lot of children or teenagers, like college students that you're seeing?
We're seeing, obviously, we've talked about this before, that the highest concentration of patients that we see are in the downtown area, but it's not isolated to it. We're seeing it throughout the county. And I'm
People, young people.
and various ages of age ranges and various degrees of financial income and background. So I mean, and law enforcement could probably speak to even more so, more specifics on that.
Is there any way somebody from law enforcement could just talk about the difficulty as this drug keeps changing? I know Captain Benavides was saying that it probably would be
Sure.
something better for you guys to talk about.
Well, as Commander Officer said, if we find you with what we believe to be cocaine or crack cocaine, we have test kits, field test kits, that can test for the substance and tell us from a presumptive test what it probably is. You can't do that with K2 because it's no specific substance. The lab, which Commander Officer said has done a great job for us testing these items that we seize, has a wide gamut of things that they have to search for to see if they're present in order to call it K2. And so us on the streets, if you arrest a person for whatever and you search them incidental to arrest and you find what may be K2, you can't charge them with it. You have to turn it into the lab to be tested. Once it's tested, then detectives can file a warrant for the person, but it takes several months, for that to happen.
Do you think there's a way to get ahead of this, or is it kind of you're learning as you go?
We're always learning as we go. I don't know if it will ever be possible for science to create a test kit for K2, given the fact that it's not a specific substance. It's a mix of chemicals that come together, cause a reaction in the body, and so whether or not there will ever be a test kit for that, I don't know.
But what the legislature did do is 2015, in 2015, our legislature passed some updates to the analog drug. So before, if it didn't meet, the way they got around the law is, say we'll use water, H2O, they'd add another oxygen molecule onto it. Well, if you add another molecule onto it, it's still an analog. So in 2015, the legislature finally caught up. We caught up with the scientists, and they passed an analog rule. So if it's even close, it falls in. So now we have the tool to do the test. It's just a process that you can't get around. Legally, we have the tools now that if you change the product and it's still the base formula, we can do what we need to do. But the science of it is that it has to be tested to at least be specific of this is what it contains.
Commander Officer, could you please identify yourself? You didn't do that at the beginning.
My name is, I thought I was world famous, oh my God. My name is Troy Officer. Last name is Officer, OFFICER, and I'm the commander of our Organized Crime Division.
So if it takes a couple months, I guess, to get that charge in for the lab results, are these people, I guess, still on the streets and possibly delivering more K2?
When we make an arrest, if it's another charge, they're in jail on that charge. If it's simply a K2 thing, we seize the evidence, test it, and they're released until we can come back with a warrant, and then they're picked up later. The legal process is always a step behind the other process, and that's just the world we live in.
Do you believe that you're closing in on the ringleader of this?
We are working diligently with federal and other partners, as well as international partners. This is trying to stop a flood with a teaspoon. Tomorrow there will be another drug that we'll be after that's hot and heavy. We're bound to do what we can with this one. I would love to say that we could put a stop to it and I'd be the richest man in the world and figure out that, but all we can do is do our best and roll with the punches.
And you're saying international, are you talking about the FBI? Like, who are these international and national agencies you're working
Most of
with?
these drugs that are coming to us are coming from China. And so we're working with the FBI as well as HSI to try to get cooperation with, because what it takes to make these drugs are not illegal in other countries. And with the internet, you can order whatever you need from anywhere. And that in and of itself may or may not be illegal, but we're trying to swim further upstream to stop the flow, as opposed to on the bottom end where we're just constantly in the vicious cycle. But the wheels of justice turn slowly, but I guarantee you they are turning.
I just have one more question, sorry, for me personally. How much did the upcoming South by Southwest play into the urgency of getting these people off the streets?
what played into the urgency of getting these people off the street were the 50 overdoses we had on Thanksgiving. Quite honestly and personally, I'm sick and tired of reading about. I get a call from Justin on a Friday evening saying, hey man, we just got hit again. EMS has made 50 runs. My guys are swamped. What can we do? Now, it played a part into doing it before South by Southwest because I don't have to wait another month to get these guys off the street because I can't do it during South by because we'll be stretched so thin. But what played the most part in getting this done was our Thanksgiving overdoses.
So do people buy the ingredients from China and then make it over here, or do they buy it from China and then distribute it here?
They buy the ingredients from outside the country and they make it here, and they make dollars on the pennies invested. These guys who make this drug are predators. They're in it for the money and no other reason, and they could care less about the health of the general public, whether they be school children, school teachers, homeless folks, or police officers.
So are you guys tracking like web sales of some of these ingredients, or?
I hope to be standing before you soon with another press conference and have an answer to all your questions. Hopefully with some folks that speak another language next to me saying that they're working with us.
I have a question. You mentioned Arch. I know that there's also a huge homeless population in South Austin, around Ben White, Lamar, that area. Are we seeing a lot of K2 arrests in that area as well?
There's probably arrests all over the city, but most of the K2 responses are medical calls as opposed to arrest. So we were driven to this by the sure pinpointed location for medical calls. Because otherwise it's probably just a PI, but most PIs don't die or kill people or fight in the process of being treated. So they're happening in other parts of the city as medical calls, and it's not as concentrated as we have downtown, which is why for this particular one it was focused downtown.
I imagine you concur with that, right?
Yes. Yes, I do concur with that. As far as the city is concerned, we also have a not as high incident number, but we do see a higher incident than any other part of the county, other than downtown, towards the transition center. So those are the two spots that we see the highest concentration of these incidents.
Of all these people on this chart, is there anyone who's a pretty major dealer, like dealing to dealers?
Well, it's hard to say as far as the ones that are on the chart right now, because most of the people that you see on here are either users or low-level people that just happen to pass it off, or whatever the case may be. The major people, the distributors and such, again, those are people who aren't necessarily in the Austin area, but that's why we're working with agencies on the federal level, state level, and local level in other cities.
Do you suspect, what's the area do you suspect they are in?
All over. They're basically all over. I mean, you can look all over the country. We're getting hit. Large major cities are getting their emergency services, they're overburdened because these people are coming in. The reality is these people that are making this stuff, they don't care about us. They don't care about these people that they call clients. They can mix some of anything in this stuff. They take it. All of a sudden now we have a call. EMS has to go on. So we've got to keep that in mind as a society. These people are in the business of making money. That's their ultimate goal. They don't care about other people.
We'll take one last question.
These 21 outstanding warrants for these people, are they considered dangerous at all, or are they still delivering, or what's kind of these outstanding warrant people?
Well, they're first-degree felonies, which they're on the higher end of the spectrum as far as pickups. Most of these people, the reality is, they're going to come back to the downtown area. The DTAC officers, they've always been directly involved with this roundup as well as the previous one. So they're going to be on the lookout for these people because they're going to also have their pictures in their own little packets because we hand them out during the roundups. So they're going to be on the lookout for these people. And again, like I was saying earlier, if an officer comes across someone over the course of their job, then they're going to run them over their system, and then they'll show up with that warrant hit.
With that,
Drop the
With that,
mic.
mic drop. And with that, mic drop.
I didn't want to drop it in that way,
You
but
said you were gonna drop the mic. So
whatever. See?
Good?
No more questions, Saab.
No.
We're good now. Thank you.
Thanks.
Are you guys gonna